Good day, everyone. Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I'm your host. I'm Cassandra Crawley Mayo, and I just want to welcome my listeners. I even want to welcome my new listeners. And for those who aren't familiar with this podcast, this is all about my listeners who are ready to move forward in their lives, want to overcome obstacles that's preventing them from living their best life. You know, those self-imposed barriers that we have, those imposter syndrome, those even external barriers that we may have that's just preventing us from moving forward in their life. And, you know, we talk about topics related to personal and business development and even self-improvement. And today we're going to talk about a topic called the lives we choose for the lessons we learn. And I have a special guest that knows all about that and even clarify that title for us. And her name is Farah. And let me welcome Farah to the stage. Well, hello, Farah.
Hi, Cassandra. How are you?
I am doing well today, and I want to welcome you to our Is Your Way in Your Way podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And my listeners, what I'm going to do now, as you know, is I'm going to read Farah's bio before we take a deep dive into what this message is all about today. Farah is a British national with Parsi roots. She was born in London and raised in North India, educated in a diverse setting of a Catholic convent in a historic Muslim city amid Hindu mythology. She embodies a global perspective with a career spanning over 30 years in the banking industry. She began as a London trainee at the age of 18, advancing across continents. Wow, she definitely has a what I would call just has such an impressive cross-cultural background. Following the loss of her mother, Farah embarked on an introspective journey using practices like baking and yoga to heal and find equanimity, which is a mental calmness, composure, evenness of temper in difficult times. She accepted the good and the bad. Now she's based in Dubai for 2 decades. She's a proud mother of 2 and envisions owning a cafe. Farah's deep passion for yoga keeps her regularly on the mat in various Dubai classes. She has a best-selling mother-daughter relationship memoir. Well, that's who Farah is. And, you know, and what I want to first talk about, because of this mother-daughter relationship memoir, I just want to dive into what happened to Farah in February 28th, 2006. That's a day that she will never forget. It was the day that a phone call shook her world. And so my question to you, Farah, and to my listeners is for them to hear your answer. How did that day go prior to the phone call that you received? Like, where were you, and with whom you were with? And it sounds to me that you usually silence your phone, but that particular day, your phone on silent, you did not leave your phone on silent mode. So could you tell us about that day, February 28, 2006?
Sure. It's, as you said, a day one will not forget. I was in Dubai working. My kids were young. My ex-husband was out of town on work. So I'd gone to the office, come home, had dinner with the kids, given them a bath, put them to bed. And then when I retired, as you said, I didn't put my phone on silent because my husband was out of town, just in case he needed to reach us for any reason. Mm-hmm. And it was the middle of the night and the phone rang, and luckily it rang and I heard the phone because it wasn't on silent. And it was my stepfather who was calling me. And typically, he might not have called me. We would have communicated through mom. So the fact that he called me in of itself was a little bit, not normal. And when I picked up the phone, he just said to me, Farah, your mother's been shot and you need to come home as soon as possible. And, it wasn't all where I could ask why or what happened or how did it happen, because, he was distraught. I don't think I completely processed the news. It was, I was groggy, half asleep. So when I put the phone down, it was a case of, how do I get to India? So you start looking at flights, but I needed my husband to come home to be with the kids before I could leave. So it was all of that started happening.
Yeah.
As I waited for day to break, because I couldn't get back to sleep before I went into my work to let them know that I'd be gone for a while. So it was a bit of a roller coaster, shall we say.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about this journey. A journey is a passage from one place to another. So it wasn't like a day that you got through this or whatever. It was, I'm certain, a large, humongous process to get through it. So talk to us about the methodology, like what tools, what resources, what did you do? What were you able to do to overcome it? This situation and this circumstances in your life? What inward journey did you take to overcome this tragedy?
So I think on the day itself, it's before I got to India, it's a bit about, I go into, if you like, if there's ever a crisis, I turn inwards and I sort of retreat almost into a zone from where I can operate. So I sort of zone out outside noise and interference, if you like, and I just take the steps I need to take that I know need to occur to get me from point A to point B. So on the day I was in Dubai, I needed my husband to come home. I needed to book a flight. I needed to get to the airport, picked up at the airport, taken to the hospital because my mother was flown into Delhi hospital by the time I was arriving. So it was, I buckle down in a crisis. Everyone handles it differently. It's just the way I do it. And literally it's keep my eye on where I want to get to rather than the speed bumps that are coming up in the middle. So I don't necessarily focus on whatever the issue or the hurdle is, because I know I need to get to the end of that journey or that destination. So for me, it was I had to get to India. In the middle, I had to go into the office. I needed to hand over my work, let the team know. I was getting phone calls from everyone in India because no one expected mom to survive. And they wanted me to get there as soon as I possibly could to see my mother, just in case, I didn't get that opportunity. I needed to make sure my kids were secure and safe and fine before I got on that flight. When I got off the flight, just the journey to the hospital, and up until that point, maybe there was a little bit of denial or a lack of appreciation of the gravity of the situation because I hadn't seen it. I'd heard it, but I hadn't, fully felt it in my body, if you like. And then when I walked into the hospital and went up to see my mother, and the protocol to get into an ICU, you scrub your hands, you put on the gown, you put on the shoe covers, etc. And you walk in and you see your mother, who was this larger than life character lying in bed, strapped up to every kind of machinery. It sort of really hits you quite deep inside to realize, oh my God, we're dealing with a very, very serious situation.
Yeah.
And then mom survived for 25 days. She was in hospital for 25 days. So it was keeping vigil, staying then. Obviously, she's in ICU, so people outside in the waiting room, it's not like we're with her constantly. But it's, again, I go inward. I am not, I don't tend to share how I'm feeling at the time because I'm processing and dealing and finding my strength in solitude or silence or just introspection. And it was literally just day by day, hour by hour, and we'd be called in at particular times where visits were allowed to the patients. and for the rest of the time you're sitting sort of waiting, and you're in limbo because you're
Yes.
just waiting, praying for her well-being,
Yes.
strength to get through the ordeal, and just sort of hanging in there.
Yes. Yes. Was she coherent in any way with them 25 days? Did you
She
get
was.
to talk to her? Did she say anything to you that helped you through your journey as things moved forward? And what was that?
She
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry. She was coherent. So because of the impact of the gunshot, her lungs and her diaphragm were impacted. So they had her on a ventilator. So she
Mhm.
wasn't speaking freely, but she was gesticulating. I even got a chalkboard and chalk to write out as she was signing or telling us stuff. But she was in good spirits. She was very aware of what was going on. And
Mhm.
so police came in to try and question her about the incident itself. And her spirit was so strong. She said, given if the same thing were to occur again, I would do exactly the same while she's lying in bed strapped up to the machine. So that
Yeah.
was her sort of fighting spirit.
Yes.
Um, she expressed her love of me and her pride in me and the siblings, but to see your parent go through suffering when the body is suffering, not so much
Yeah.
the mind, but the body, but the mind is so alert and it's aware of what's happening in the body, right? And my mother was extremely intelligent and she was a lawyer and she was completely aware. And I think that part really gets you as a human experience to
Yeah.
see another human being, your mother, sort of lying there aware that this could be the end or this is the end at the point
Yeah.
then when she realizes and she says it to me that this is the end. That that is really difficult to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and even if she were not shy, but just passing, period, it's difficult. I know I've been there. And then there was a part when you said you just started struggling when during her demise, after the 25 days, your mom was no longer with you in the physical. You talked about how you started struggling with life and death, that struggle. So what were you thinking when your mom did pass away? What were your thoughts then?
So in India, there's a huge emphasis on releasing the soul, allowing the soul to go peacefully, to allow it to reach the realm where it's meant to go, and to not be encumbered by human sorrow or
Mhm.
attachment. But given the unnatural nature in which mom passed, I think all of us were finding it hard to let go, right?
Okay.
We ourselves were finding it hard to accept what had happened. So to allow this person to leave in the physical, but then also to let whatever attachment you have to that spirit, to that soul, to that emotion, just let it go, right? And there was a part where I just could not understand, where do we go after? Like, I didn't want to believe mom had left me and she wouldn't be around me. So I went to psychics, I went to mediums, I went to tarot card readers, I went for hypnotherapy, I went for holotropic breath work. Part
Yes.
of it was to release the emotions, part of it was to process the tragedy and to understand that, bad things happen to good people.
Yeah.
Part of it was to come to terms with how life and death works.
Yeah. Mhm.
And Deepak Chopra says, if you can imagine, he was describing the relationship between a soul and a body, and he was saying, if you can imagine a room with four walls and the air inside, but you've also got air all around you in the atmosphere. He says,
Mhm.
if you were to take those walls down, the air within mingles with the air outside, and you can't tell the difference. It's all one, air that
Mhm.
surrounds you. And he said, so if you can imagine, when the physical is no more, the soul just goes back and mingles with the universe of souls
Yeah.
and is back where it belongs, not sort of encapsulated in the physical form of a body. So it was me trying to this was the first, major loss in my life. I
Yes.
didn't have the tools to understand or to get over it or to get past it. So it was going through it, that, and each sort of meeting or interaction or book I read or podcast I listened to or
Yeah.
person I spoke to, that helped me assimilate all the data points, the knowledge, the understanding, to be able to put it into perspective for me, to
Yeah.
be able to handle it.
Yeah. Now, this brings me to the topic, the lives we choose for the lessons we learned. And that's something that your mom believed in.
She
And
did.
and it took me a while, it's very thought provoking. And I just couldn't wait to talk to you about for clarification. And like you said, it was even difficult for you to accept that you could have chosen to have your mother shot, your father abandoned you, or your stepfather rejected you. So, how did you deal with such displacement and fear of rejection? And have you come to terms with the saying that your mother taught you? And how can you describe that in layman's terms, what she meant by that?
Mom was very spiritual. So, and as she got older, she was very, she used to read a lot of philosophy, a lot of religious scripts, and just try to, understand the workings of the universe, if you like. And she
Yes.
always said, if you think of it as soul contracts, and there's this term of soul families, of life between lives, where souls choose to come into a particular life or a physical form to learn particular lessons. So all of us will have a challenge of some description. It could be
Yes.
grief, it could be loss, it could be health, it could be financial, it could be a combination of any
Yes.
of those sort of scenarios. And each of those lessons is there to help us find strength
Okay.
through whatever the challenge it presents, right? Because they also say the universe doesn't give you a challenge more than you can deal with. So it's not meant to break you, it's just meant to help you find the strength that's within you and
Hmm.
bring you out the other side a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, hopefully able to give something back to someone along the way.
Hmm.
Um, and if I ever complained to mom about something I was facing or encountering, she would always say, just remember you chose this. And that used to be our little sort of inside
Yeah.
joke, a little bit of our debate, but it would be like, Mom, I'm sure I didn't.
Yeah.
But like, trust me, you did. Um,
Wow.
and, the father and stepfather, it's, what I've figured out in my own way is, I think my lesson in this lifetime is about self-reliance and self-sufficiency. It's
Hmm.
about not looking to the traditional male figures in my life, either parental or even spousal,
Hmm.
for whatever it is that one might look to them for, whether it's support or emotional or financial or physical. It's, I need to find it within myself and be able to stand on my own 2 feet. And the minute I take that expectation away, it's fine. But the minute I ascribe an expectation, it leads to a disappointment. So
Hmm.
I think that's how I ascribe those situations to the lessons I need to learn in this particular lifetime.
Right. So that's something that was part what I would call your DNA, because that's a lesson that you learned from your mom. So if I, with my listeners, we've all gone through trials and tribulations, and we have more. As long as we live, there will be things that occur. And so seems to me that her comment brought you solace. It's kind of like, okay, even though I don't know how you feel now, like you chose to have your mom shot. How did you, how did that settle with you, or has it not settled yet? Is it more about the lesson? So like, what lesson did you learn besides resilience, from what has happened in your life, and I'm asking this for my listeners because, like I said, there's always something that's gone on, like the loss of a loved one, or, losing a job, being downsized, have a child that's always in trouble. Um, the lesson. So what are they again to learn from that?
So I think if I look at it and break it down to its simplest level, I lost my mother in not of natural causes, right?
Okay.
So her life was cut short. So regardless of how it occurred, and the how doesn't define, the whole person or my relationship with my mother, the end is not her entire story. So if I don't focus on the how of how she ended, but just I lost her not of natural causes. I lost her when we feel she had many more years to live, right?
Yes. Right.
So it's about the loss of a parent. And what did I learn from that was, again, back to that message of self-sufficiency and reliance for me, because mom was my only parent growing up.
Yeah.
My dad was not around. My stepdad wasn't parenting me, so to speak. So it was without my mom, who was my foundation or my anchor,
Mhm.
where do I turn to when I need to speak to someone about something good, if I want to share, or if something not good? Who do I turn to for counsel? And it's about developing your own inner voice, but also developing your network, finding out the people who you can turn to. And my mom, I was very lucky. She's got an amazing group of friends, and some of them I'm very close to, and they became the people who would counsel me or assist me. I've got a great group of girlfriends who've been there for me through. You talk of downsizing, redundancy. I've
Yeah.
faced divorce, like all of those lessons. Each of those lessons has kind of contributed to the
Okay.
person that I am here today speaking to you,
Right.
from a voice of experience, someone who's been through it. I've been in the trenches. I can tell you how it was dark. I can also
Yeah.
tell you you can come through it and find a way to be, and these circumstances don't have to define us. Yes, I've experienced it, but it's not a badge that I carry around. I don't, for example, advertise about the divorce or that I'm a single parent, because it's not a victim mindset, but it's about, as you say, resilience and grit. And yes, I've encountered something really not great, but so
Hmm.
has everyone else. And how do I
Yes.
get past it? What do I learn from it?
Yeah.
How do I secure myself
Okay.
so that should something else come up, I'm slightly stronger, slightly more stable in my foundation within myself to
Okay.
deal with whatever comes at me.
So the strength, you say that, and like I was saying earlier before we started this, how we have a choice. We can be bitter about a situation that has occurred, or we can be better, and you chose better. And I know that can be still difficult. And so your strength, you got it. You talked about how there were different modalities that you went through. It wasn't one common thing. It just sounded like hypnotherapy, psych therapists, other things was there. So it was a accumulation of modalities that helped you. Where some people may think because we're in our way, it's just one thing. For example, I'm a woman of faith and I strongly believe in God and I pray. Okay. But sometimes prayer will help me or guide me to a direction, another direction, or something else, like knowing that, okay, I prayed about it, and my understanding now is that I need more help. I don't think God put people in our lives for not, situations in our lives for not. And He says that, what is it? You said it earlier. He won't give you many more than you said, the universe. I say, God says, I won't give you any more than you can bear. And there are times when you like, really? I mean, seriously? I mean,
How much more? Yeah, how much
exactly.
more? Yeah, I
Okay.
get you.
And He's like, so if you faint not, I'll see you through this. And I'm just grateful that He saw you through this, because I see the lessons that you learned and what you have gone through. In many instances, to me, it sounds like it's for others as well. It's just not for you, although it's your story.
Hmm.
And you have helped, I'm certain, many of my listeners through this that has gone through tragedy before, but yet they're thinking, wow, if she went through that, and she made it and she's still here, then perhaps I can make it. So what your testament or testimony is to help those listeners. And that's why I say, and this is, titled "Is Your Way in Your Way?" It could be because we in many instances we just decide to, this is the way, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to see a therapist, or I should just pray. But as you see, there are other things that you can do that can help people on their journey. So I want to talk a little bit about your memoir, your best-selling memoir, um, with you and your mom, Meher. How do you pronounce your mom's name?
Yeah, that's
Meher,
it. Meher.
yeah,
Yeah.
and me. How did that memoir help you? And what triggered you to write that memoir?
I'm not quite sure if it was ever a conscious thought that I want to write a memoir.
Okay.
It was more as I was going through the journey and I was journaling, and my therapist was asking me to write about my feelings of how I felt at the time at particular points in the entire process. The feelings were coming through. And then it was an evening with a laptop, and the words just started flowing out about the heart of the story, the incident itself.
Mhm.
And I shared that sort of chapter with a couple of people just to say, is there any merit in my writing? Is it a
Mhm.
story you'd be interested to hear more about? And I got positive feedback.
Yeah.
And so I started developing the story in my spare time and bringing the story to life and the characters to life and trying to build, from the start to where you get to know my mother a little bit better, to where you see the incident and how I found modalities that you're talking about. Yes, I tried a lot, and maybe I settled on yoga and baking as my thing. And
Yeah.
again, yoga is active meditation. So any
Yeah.
activity of choice, it could be swimming, it could be dancing, it could be walking, it can be whatever you choose. And baking is creative for me. So it's, again, working with your hands. They say there are
Yeah.
nerve endings in your hands. So it could be
Okay.
gardening, it could be embroidery, it could be painting,
Yeah.
whatever makes you happy. Food makes me happy.
Mhm.
Feeding others makes me happy.
Mhm.
Um, Yoga gives me balance and sort of allows me to center myself. I'm not very
Mhm.
good at sitting still and meditating,
Yes.
but whilst I'm moving, I'm able to free up my mind and release the thoughts. So all of that sort of helped me as I was developing the story. And the story was, it's been taken many years. Your
Yes.
listeners will see the finished product, but trust me, it didn't happen overnight. It took a
Yeah.
while,
Yeah.
a lot of editing, a lot of trying to find the way on how I bring it to life and what's the best route for me. So a lot of work in the background
Yes.
that hopefully gives you something that you will see today, and I hope enjoy reading and take
Right.
something from it that will help you in your life and your listeners.
Okay. Well, what is the biggest takeaway from Meher and me that you want your readers or your listeners to learn?
I would say it's about what we've already touched on, right? That there will always be challenges in each of our lives.
Okay.
There'll be different forms of challenges, but we will all encounter challenges. And the challenge is there to help us find the strength that's already within us. It's
Okay.
not like it's a new strength that comes to us. It's within us, but we need to learn the skills to tap into it, to harness it, to allow it to guide us to the next stage or the next level of wherever we need to get to. I'd say it's about resilience, yes, but also finding the support and the tools that help you. We all,
Yeah.
like you've talked about prayer, I have faith.
Yes.
I pray as well, a different version, different words, different variation, but it's the same. You're talking to something that's outside of yourself, higher than you, that you believe will guide you. And if you have faith, then you believe you are where you're meant to be and
Yes.
you are being taken in the direction of where you're meant to go.
Hmm.
So you have to have faith in the journey, including the bad bits of the journey. The
Yes.
journey is not always going to be great for us. I would say find the support. If it's therapy that talks to you, if it's friends, if it's an activity, if it's faith, if it's creative, whatever helps you nurture your soul and your inner being to allow you to stay strong in your mind and your body to handle whatever that challenge is and come out through it.
Yes. Okay. It sounds like embrace the journey, not so much the destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But know that the destination you're headed to is
Right.
going to be better than whatever you're going through at the moment.
Exactly. And
Because
know
you will
when you
come through.
and when you get to that destination, there'll be something else as well. But just to embrace that journey, because in that, it's like you indicated, is the lessons that we learn and that can be shared. Now, Farah, where can my listeners get a copy of your memoir?
They can buy it online. So on my website, farahpress.com, there are links to Amazon, Ingram, or any online retailer of choice. There are ebooks available as well. I'm on Instagram as well at farah.press, so your listeners can come and see the journey and follow and listen, hopefully see the podcast and listen to the conversation as we post it as well.
Yes. Okay, great. Now I have my last question for you, and I usually ask my guests, and I always have my listeners to think about this from a scale of 1 to 10. And I ask you the question, where are you in living your best life? And 10 being the highest. How would you score yourself at this point in time in your life?
Well, I don't want to sound too big-headed, so I won't say the 10, but maybe the 9. If I have absorbed the lessons of life, and as you say, it's not like they've stopped, every day there's something new that comes at us. But for the most part, if I can deal with the good and the bad with that level of equilibrium, shall we say, take it in my stride, stay strong in myself, have my self-belief, have my faith, be resilient in the face of whatever's coming at you, and enjoy what you're doing. Like whether it's the baking, whether it's the dance that I love, whether it's music or reading or talking to you all or whatever, try and do the best that you can do in everything and enjoy and savor all of it.
Wow, that's great. For my listeners out there, now just listen to all that Farah has been through. And I'm certain all of my listeners have been through something, but she can say today that she is a 9, and that is phenomenal. And I just applaud her for that, because we know that what she's been through was not easy, but look at where she is now. So that gives me hope, and gives me hope for my listeners to say that I can get there as well. So I'd like to end this podcast right now. And for my listeners, you know that we're on every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if in fact you believe that this podcast is going to help someone, please share it. Thanks so much. God bless you, and bye for now.